insert theme tune here, it says. Oh, okay. Well, we haven't got a theme tune, so if you'd like to make us one, that would be great. Anyone wanting to write a theme tune for this new podcast, please do submit it via pigeon mail. Hello, and welcome to A Better Way of Life with me, Graham, and my co-host, Marianne Mills. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Where are you coming from? That's a lovely little space that you have there that you've created recently, haven't you?
Well, I didn't build it, but yes, I've been kicked out of the house by my request into the garden, garden shed. But it is a very fancy garden shed, and it's actually very big. I think it's 4 meters by 4 meters, so it'll be my little space.
Massive on the space, and in the background, you've got the world's biggest printer there as well.
Yeah, my normal printer doesn't work at the moment, but that one behind, there's DTF, which is direct to film. So like this here, this.
Yeah, show everyone. You can stand up. It's fine. Okay, so this is one of your own.
I designed.
Making.
Well, I took this design from somewhere, and then I design it on the computer, and then it gets put onto another program, and then gets printed onto a film, which then gets pressed onto the hoodie, which is a great alternative to like vinyl and stuff, which I used to use, or if you want full color. It's great now. If I want something or somebody asks me for a design, I'm like, I can do that.
See, everyone just thought that you did training, but you actually can do merch and stuff like that as well.
The guy that sold us the printer had to teach us how to use it. I wanted to say to him, I can teach you, because obviously he was going to teach people how to use it, because they like people buy them and you've really got to know your stuff. I mean, I'm not an engineering, Tim is, but he wasn't very good at explaining, because he got a bit ratty when people didn't when we didn't understand how to do it. I wanted to tell him that I could teach him how to teach other people how to use the equipment he was selling,
which is a good segue into really telling people why we've started this. So the whole purpose of this conversation, or when I say conversation, the elongated conversation that we shall be having over many weeks on A Better Way of Life, is that this is going to be an opportunity for us to talk to people like you who really want to make a difference in the world, who have got a story out there that you want to tell people about how maybe you've overcome a challenge in your life, or maybe you've done something in your life that has really helped other people. So that's what it's all about, a better way of life. And along the way, we're going to be talking about some of our favorite subjects as well, which will, for me, be music. It will also be conversation, communication, language, because I absolutely love not learning languages. I'm absolutely useless at that, but I do love how we use language. Words. Yeah,
like crikey. I get laughed at for my use of crikey. It's a great use of the word.
Why? It's great word.
But it is, though, because crikey is actually saying something else, but I'm saying the other word, but in an appropriate way at the time. Because I don't generally mean crikey, I mean something else.
One of the things we will also talk about is neurodiversity. Myself, I've never been diagnosed, but I'm pretty certain that I'm neurodiverse. I have a son who is in the process of being assessed for autism and ADHD. It's quite a drawn out process, quite a difficult process to go through as a parent. We will talk a little bit about that. Marianne, you've got a diagnosis, but you've gone through that whole process, and it's been quite life-changing for you, hasn't it?
Literally life-changing. Yeah. And I suppose I live. Some people look at being diagnosed and looking back. Somebody said to me a while ago that they cried when they found out because of the loss they felt. And I feel I get that. And I was able to say to that person, but now you can, at least you know now, and you can, armed with what you know. I say now I want to say that I've been given the manual that I should have had at the beginning, but I don't even think there is a manual to deal with my head. But I just, now I know what I'm dealing with, or that I'm not this. I'm going to say that I'm not the same as everyone else, but I think actually none of us are anyway. And I think that that's what I try and spread to people, is just be yourself. Just be yourself. And actually, it doesn't. Yes, I was diagnosed, and yes, your son's in the process and whatever else. But for me, like, I know for my son's, and I say in the process, he had got one diagnosis, but it's for younger kids. A lot of the time people want it because it opens the door for something else, but actually it shouldn't really have to. And a lot of what I do is about saying, and you and I had a conversation about this earlier, that it shouldn't be that you've got that box ticked, therefore you get that. It should be that actually, if we all treated each other with respect and we all acknowledge we've all got needs, it doesn't matter whether you've been ticked with that box or that box, because actually you might have been 1 mark off. I know that my son didn't hit the criteria for something purely because I know that people didn't tick the right boxes. Doesn't mean to say that he still hasn't got those needs. And we had a conversation about the phrase on the spectrum. And I know people don't like it, but then I got thinking, well, maybe we are all, because some people are diagnosed, some aren't. Some people might be diagnosed by a psychologist, psychiatrist, but some wouldn't. And so it's not an exact science anyway, but really it's all about what we need. That's all it should be about, is what we need. If you say to me, it would really help me. I mean, you know about my Pilates thing, that I have to have my mat. I have to have my mat in the right place. And I feel I do tell people about it, but I don't walk into the room and say, oi, move your mat, because I'd feel silly.
And can you just say that Matt feels very uncomfortable about the whole situation? And other people with other names are available. Okay.
They probably are called something else, actually. But yeah, and actually, by being open about that kind of thing, people say to me, oh, I'm like that too. So I try to just sort of spread that thing of just, do you know what, we've all got our funny quirks and ways and everything, and it's what makes us us. And if we can all be a little bit more respectful of the world we'd have a better way of life.
Yeah, we would. I mean, it's one of the things that it's one of the reasons why I started doing the polls every morning on LinkedIn.
We all love it. I wait for it when I wake up. I'm like, what's next?
Which have, been a burden at the same time, but I'm finding a way around that. But there's one of the reasons I do it is because I'm fascinated by the psychology of how people vote, and also the psychology of how people put information together or don't put information together. So you will see me deliberately sometimes do a poll, and then the post has got nothing to do with the poll.
Yeah.
Right. And some people will just do the poll bit, right? And then actually they're right in the comments about the poll, having not read the post. Yeah. And then if they, and I do then like to comment sometimes and go, have you actually read the post? And then when they read the post, they go, oh, no, I didn't. So it's I just find that whole thing.
It's quite reflective of society. I'm not saying all, how it's quick, instead of just taking the time to actually, even when people comment and they jump down people's throats on things, and you think, did you actually listen to what that person said? Did you listen to not only what did they say, how they said it, and then did you get to know? So even like when I'm working with people, I mean, I don't think it's any, I've kind of accidentally ended up where I am doing what I do, from, I suppose, having studied psychology, not wanting to work in psychology, but actually using what I know, so that when people answer me, I mean, I was looking at some of my feedback, and usually it is that I can get a group of 12 people, teaching them how to teach, but they've all in different sectors, but I'm listening to them, and then when they tell me things, it's not just what they say, it's how they say it, how they looked at me, what they said earlier, and making those links. So when people think that you just stand up there and talk all day, I go, it's a bit more than that. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes in my head than that. It's managing that person saying something and that person pulled a face, but me having to not acknowledge that person pulled a face. Did they pull a face, or were they just thinking? Exactly. I love it. I love all of that. You know, we
should deep dive into actually to tell you both what we to tell you both tell us both what we do in a bit, so that you will understand what it is that we do, even if we can actually understand ourselves what we do, because it's quite complex. But before we get into that, there's just carrying on that theme of the polls and my sort of love of communication. One of the things that I do find, especially across sort of digital communication, is that people make a lot of assumptions, of assumptions, and that's the other thing that I'm kind of playing with in the polls in the morning, because it really concerns me that people assume that if they say something, that people understand exactly what it is that they've said.
Yeah.
Whereas what they don't do is they don't, and you can perhaps talk about this a little bit more in terms of training. They don't actually check to make sure that what they've said has been understood in the way that they wanted it to be said, right? So, and you see this a lot on social media. People put something out there, assuming that the whole audience are going to understand it in a particular way, and then they're surprised when people don't all get it,
and then their rows start.
And then the rows start, or those niggles start, or the conversations go in different ways. I deliberately make the conversations go in different ways because I know that this information is going to be understood by different people in different ways. I celebrate the fact that we're all different and we all absorb information and understand information in different ways. But I just wonder how many people just walk about on the day-to-day basis with, my head is the way that everybody else's head is. Do you think so?
Well, that for me, so when I was saying about it being life-changing, in fact, only just yesterday said to somebody, I was talking about the fact my son was in hospital the other day and he had to have a CT scan. And this particular person said to me, oh gosh, I hope, what did they say to me? I hope that the outcome's okay. And I said, well, in all honesty, whichever outcome it is, it's going to be okay. And left it at that. And then I suddenly thought the person didn't respond. And then I thought maybe they're busy. So when I responded, and I said, did you understand that? And they said, no, I didn't. And I was going to ask for clarification. But I suspected, because I know that what I've learned about my head is that I used to think that people understood me. And it's because I walk around with some kind of randomness a lot of the time. So I've used what I know about my own head to try and make it so that I communicate better. So actually, in the end, I said, actually, what I meant by that was that if he needs the stent dilated, that's good, because he'll get it. And if he doesn't, that's good, but he'll need it done at a later date. And he was like, oh, right, okay. So I explained it. So I tend to try now, with knowing what I know, even I try and
Do you naturally struggle with social cues? Naturally struggle with social cues?
I don't know if I do. Well, no, I keep saying this and people must think, oh, for God's sake. But I used to, before I was diagnosed, and RSD, which is something I'd like to talk about in one of the podcasts sometime, I used to literally walk around thinking that nobody liked me. But then the other side of me was, but I think they do. But then I think people are talking about me, but then I'd think, oh, I don't know if they are. The evidence would be that people did like me, but in my head, it was something quite different. So I think now that I celebrate who I am, I kind of read those cues differently. I would read them as I wanted to read them, not as they actually were. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'd use my own bias. So with this RSD, which is rejection sensitivity dysphoria, is where let's just say I was going to have a meeting with you, and I find it really hard to associate it with it now because I don't feel it. You might say to me, I'm really sorry, Marianne, I can't come. years ago, I'd have gone, oh my God, that's great. He's wasting my time. He can't be bothered. He doesn't like me. I'd have gone down all the route. You can imagine relationships got wrecked because somebody would cancel the date. I'd read into it. Oh my gosh. I look back now and I cringe with it all and think, gosh. Whereas now I tend to sit there and I'm like, right, okay. So ordinarily, Graham will have a conversation with you and you have meetings. Do you have reason to think that it might be because, and then I'll go, then my head gets into rational bit and thinks about me, and I'll say, oh God, that's a real shame. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm going to miss you, but I really look forward to speaking to you tomorrow, and I hope your meeting goes okay with the school or whatever.
Yeah.
The old me would have completely probably been off with you. I would have, and I probably would have been off, and I would have sent it down a road that. And then you can't come back from that then.
No.
So I'd ruin relationships. So now I tend to get the cues and I'll look at it more positively. And since I've been more positive, literally everything else has been more positive. And I think that I get a lot more people attracted to me, which helps with doing what I do for a job, because I exude that. And that sounds really like out there and sounds really big-headed. I don't mean for it to be. It's just I own who I am a bit more. And I'm a bit more now like, if you like me, that's great. If you don't,
go away.
And so I said to somebody once, I feel like now it's like I needed to change my audience. And sometimes I have to change the cast members as well. And a lot of people associated with that. And it was about, I used to try and please everyone. And I think we naturally do, and then it goes wrong because, well, like you were saying about, we all walk around thinking we're right. So when somebody disagrees, you're like, what do you mean you disagree with me? Where, and then everyone gets their guard up. Well, I was the same. I did exactly the same. Whereas now I'll try and step back and go, gosh, I hadn't thought of it from that point of view. But before I wanted everybody to see the world from my point of view, and I was right. I am right a lot of the time, but I was angry. I literally walked around angry all the time. So for me, that diagnosis did change my life because it's made me wake up. Even if I've had a bad day the day before, I just feel happier in life, and I wasn't. No, I knew I was down. I knew I was, and I felt something not quite right.
Yeah, I do struggle. I do struggle with criticism. If I'm being blunt and being honest, etc.
Well, you and I had a bit of a conversation.
I do struggle with criticism. Yeah, I take it very personally, which I shouldn't do. And I know if I step back from it, I should just see it as what it is and learn from it. And do you know what? I'm one of those people that can really help other people with this stuff, but don't necessarily take that advice myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but the criticism bit, really, it's about feedback. So again, and I'll talk about it at some point when I do the training, and I talk about feedback, and I'll ask people, because I have to teach people about how to give feedback, and there's no set way. But I'll say, oh, who likes getting feedback? And you get some people put their hands up, some don't. And I'll say, I hate getting it. And I know that mine is from a history of working in education, that all you ever hear generally is you're not doing a very good job, even when you've done a great job, So, and also it's the way that it's given. A lot of the time it's that. And so it's trying to, I know I've got a friend that's autistic, and he will give me feedback, bam, like that. And I'd be like, oh, and I've had to learn that that's the way he's giving it. But also we've also had to agree, and I've had a conversation to say it might be a little bit helpful for me if, and
you've done that with me before now, haven't you? I've given you feedback. I've given you feedback and upset you.
And I gave you feedback on your feedback.
Yeah, you gave me feedback on my feedback and said,
do you know what's interesting? But it was interesting though, because what I said to you was that it was you doing it from the greatest place. So you were giving me, I'd said that I wanted to learn how to do something. So I had a go at doing it, did it. And then you said, so I said, oh, how did I do? And you said, or you could do this better. And because I went into teacher mode. Yeah, but it's not bad, because I went into the teacher mode, which is, there's two things. You're wanting me to be able to do it, which is the product, brilliantly. That's your main aim, is that you want me, because that's how you measure the success. Me doing what I do when I teach people how to teach is, it's more of a process.
Yeah.
I look at that journey. And so all I was trying to say, and also the other bit is that I've said that it's about, when you give feedback as well, it's about building up a relationship with someone. Someone I taught recently said to me, don't flower it up, just give it me as it is. I don't care. And I went, I'm not going to do that, actually, because I think you do care. And I think it's a lifetime of only ever hearing this and you've not feeling very good about yourself. So I said, I'm still going to give it the way I give it, because I know that that's how you need it. And she kind of smiled. So it's to do with that relationship, that the relationship, I've built up trust with you now. So I've told you, you can tell me things in a certain way that you never would have got away with before, because I trust you. And sometimes you have to say to me this or that or the other. And that's where it's about learning about people. Some people like it between the eyes. Some people, they don't. And some people, you have to just accept that when they've had a go at something, you both know it didn't go very well, but you'll say, look, you did it. What you're actually saying is it went wrong, but actually you weren't even going to do it. And so for me, it was a big deal.
And it all comes back down to the same thing again, which is that nobody should assume.
No.
When it comes to communication, nobody should assume. I shouldn't have assumed that if I fed you information in a particular way, you would take it in a particular way. You probably shouldn't have assumed that, I meant it. Yeah, exactly. And so there's a lot of assumptions there. Whereas in a way, what you have to do is you have to have a conversation first about how, in a certain situation or within a certain conversation, you prefer things to be provided, or information to be provided, or you prefer feedback in a particular way. Because then if you understand that, you're going to avoid those situations in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why I love doing what I do, because it is that whole and I think that's where I use, I suppose, knowing that I've been diagnosed. It's somewhat irrelevant, but knowing it, because people will come to me saying, I think I might be, or I am, or my son is, my daughter, are massively related to what you said. And a lot of that is just because I really, having been on the other side and always feeling like I was misunderstood, I really try hard to understand people, because I know the difference it makes. Because I had 45 years, I wasn't a baby, I don't think I was misunderstood, but I had many, many years where I was misunderstood. And I really wish that people had taken that time to try to understand me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to say a quick thing before we carry on. I want to say a quick thing about our mise en scène. I want to say a little bit about our backgrounds, because what I've noticed, actually, as we were talking, and for anyone just listening to this, I'm going to be as descriptive as possible. Marianne is sitting in a wooden shed, which is painted white.
It's a work in process. It is a work in process.
Beautiful whitewash walls with a grey carpet. Is grey carpet? Yeah. And there's a printer in the background, and then there's a storage unit to one side of her, which is very neatly clear on most of the shelves, with a few books which are lined up lovely. Now, in my background, I have a geometric mess on a wall with a abstract picture done by a local artist of the town hall in Lyme Regis, where it's all kind of looks like it's melting, and then a cacophony of photographic material from various bands in the background here with some lights on it. Does that say anything about us in terms of the way our brains are?
What it will say is that I craved and longed for this space for years because I was in the house, and it just, anybody that knows, well, the way that some people's neurodiverse brains work, but I would suspect, although I'm diagnosed with ADHD, I'm probably autistic. Some would agree that this one and the same, but I can be very chaotic, but I crave order. And so being in a house with 3 males as well, it was really, really difficult for me with those boundaries. So I come in here and then it's like, I've literally got a blank canvas now. And when I've got to make choices about things, that panics me as well. So I asked Susanna, a friend of mine who does, I think, is interior design and stuff, could she help me with the layout of it all? So she came up with some layout, and then I went, I don't want to sit like that. I don't want to sit like that. Anyway, she must have thought, God's sake, I've tried to help you. But then we were talking about colours and stuff. She said, I don't know if white would work because it doesn't for a lot of neurodiverse people. And I went, well, actually it does for me, because I'll put splashes of colour, because it's going to have pink. I love pink. It's my favourite colour. And it's going to have the lovely colour that we've got on the background here, teal kind of colour, because that's my logo. So, but I do quite like clean lines. But I'm struggling at the moment because because of Christmas and stuff, I haven't got all my shelves up. So what you don't see is a lot of the clutter that's spinning my head out right now, because I need shelves and I need places to put things. So
does Christmas do your head in?
I don't really like it. I don't like forced fun. I prefer to just, in fact, I was speaking to my neighbour because we went over there. I think it was on maybe Boxing Day, I can't remember. And I'd gone over to see him. He's 76. And in the end, my youngest came over, and I thought how crazy it was that I was drinking wine with a friend over there. And my youngest came over. He wanted a fat fryer for Christmas because my neighbour's got one. And I said, can't you just keep using his? Which we agreed in the end, thankfully. So he came over and then ended up making chips, and we were eating stuff. And I just thought that was the best fun. It wasn't contrived. There was no Christmas napkins. There was nothing. It was just fun. And I find Christmas just a little bit, I don't like all this contrivedness of it.
I suspect, if we're absolutely honest, that
most people feel the same.
I'm sure a lot of people really love Christmas. I know some people go crazy for Christmas and whatever. And maybe this isn't true of everybody. Again, let's not make assumptions. Maybe some people love this thing about Christmas. But for me, I never really understand any occasion where you have to get together with family members who you don't really like, or you don't ever see for the rest of the year. It's just why. It's just I think for me, I find the whole Christmas. I don't speak to my, we don't speak to my brother now, and that's his stuff, which is sad, but it's also happy, because actually what I did, and interestingly, I made that decision before I was diagnosed. And now I look back at things, it was almost like I was preparing to know that, and I never had any suspicion that I had this at all. And in the end, I said to my mum one day, look, I know it's really difficult for you, but I can't be around him anymore. I said, because it just doesn't put me in a very good place. I said, because he just things he would do, or he would say, or he'd try to wind me up or whatever. And I said, I just can't do this anymore, Mum, because it doesn't leave me. And she said, okay. And actually, whilst it was a very sad thing to do, it was the best thing I could do. And actually, in the end, he kind of did the same, or my mum sort of had to check out from him as well. And I think that's where Christmas and all those sorts of things just highlight. Oddly, I end up feeling a bit like, oh, my dad's not around. My dad's not alive. Around, I was going to say. Then he is around me, but in some respects, I feel sad because it highlights. So when I got married, my mother-in-law wanted us to have a top table. I said, I don't want one, and she went on and on and on. And in the end, I said, just shove a table there and we'll sit on it. Because I didn't want it, because I didn't want to highlight the fact my dad wasn't there. And she said, oh, put your brother there. And I don't want him there. Even if I got on, I didn't want it.
I didn't want to do it just because that's what we're, that's what we're supposed to do. And so in some respects, although it makes me feel sad that my brother's not around us and other people, I'm not doing what I'm actually in a space where I'm not having to spend time with people that I don't want to, because that was the biggest thing I did, which was just having the audience I wanted to, or having the cast members, should I say, the cast members that I wanted to, and not doing what was expected or what you should do. Because I go, why are you doing that then? Why do it?
Yeah. I love that idea of them being cast members. Just imagine if they were cast members, if it was just all acting.
So your cast members, I suppose your family, maybe, and then you've got your audience is maybe the wider sort of thing. And so the audience used to be the ones that I used to have to people please. And so those, you can't change, sometimes you can't change your cast. Well, but your audience, you can. And I did change my audience, and it's great.
I'm going to write it down. I think we might have to do a whole episode on family, because families are weird.
But the audience, it was almost as if my audience was heckling me, which I didn't actually really, looking at it, I thought, I don't even want you anyway. So, bye. There you
go. Now, listen, let's explain to people. We said we'd do this. Explain to people what we do. So, tell people about your training.
I was going to say age before beauty then, but there we go. So my, should I take about my background? I guess I'll tell people about my background. Very briefly.
And we don't mean the white wall now. We mean, what you've done in the past.
I won't give you the ADHD version. I'll give you the version that I've learned to give. I've started life working in care. So I suppose I was doing that. I had done A-levels and I failed my A-levels. Then I went to, I passed one. Then I went to live in the States, having not been very well for a bit. So I lived there for 6 months, came home, retook my A-levels, was going to university to do psychology. That's what I was going to do. Went to Bristol, had a look at the accommodation and thought, don't know if this is for me. And then I put it off for a year. So I did care work for a bit, did the Prince's Trust, then decided that, yes, I was going to go, went back down to look at it and thought, why am I going? Because it's only down the road from me. I'm in Gloucester. And I'd kind of been there, done it, got the T-shirt, done the drinking, done this. Quite like my home comforts as well. So I stayed at home, bought a brand new car instead. My parents then in the end had bought a house in Cheltenham, and I found out that the uni locally to me in Cheltenham did the degree I wanted, and it was BPS approved. So I thought, sod it, I might as well go there. And they said to me, we're full, but because you're a mature student at 21, we'll give you a place, because it's highly likely that you're going to stay and others will leave. So I did my degree. I pretty much didn't like all of it. I was going to back out after year one. I stayed, did year two, had to do an extra year because I wasn't very well. So I deferred. Quite liked the last year, finished, and then thought I don't want to work in psychology. Then I went to work for the council on the help desk. And then I did loads of different jobs. And then, before my dad died sort of a year after suicide. So that, I suppose, threw a bit of a curveball. And then I just didn't really settle at anything. So I did loads of jobs. And then I worked for a foster care agency, and they said, did I want to deliver some training for them? And I thought, And I just met someone at the time. And then in the end, we sort of looked at me doing my PGCE, and I got paid to do it, did it, and thought I'd quite like to train carers. So I decided that's what I would do. So I did my PGCE, decided in my wisdom, but didn't really mean for it to plan this way. In the June, I finished my degree. I got married in the July. Started a new job in the June, straight after I got my degree, my PGCE. Got married, moved house the same month, and then I was expecting a baby. So I did quite a lot in that period. And then when I told the council that I was expecting, they said they didn't need me anymore, which I thank them now, because it's probably a good thing. And then I sort of fell back then after. So I went back to work after 3 months after having him. And then I sort of went back to working with kids with behavioural problems, which is what it was called then, because I've worked in children's homes before, and then I worked in schools and colleges, taught blind students, taught health and social care, and then a job came up at National Star up the road. Katie Price's son goes, and I went to get a job teaching the students that are disabled, but there was a teacher trainer job, and I thought, sounds good. And the rest was history, really. I did that for a bit for them, and then I did it freelance, and then I was doing tutoring for Priory, and then lockdown happened. I lost all my work, I lost all my money, and I thought, I can't be in this position again. So I set up my own centre, doing what I do, that I was doing for other people, but doing it under my own banner.
So just to explain, if people are wondering exactly what it is that you do, what do you do?
I teach people how to teach, which people think sounds strange. So I do care training, which people often think it sounds a bit strange, but I then remind them that would they like their kids to be taught by people who aren't trained teachers? To which they say, well, of course they would be. And I say, well, of course, people that train you should be. You can, anybody, arguably, if you know, but knowing your stuff isn't the same as being able to educate people with it. So yeah, and I suppose the unique way I do it is that lots of people teach this, lots of companies teach it. I focus a lot more on, it's almost a bit of a self-development course. So once you get that qualification, actually what people get as I go through it with them is they discover a lot about themselves. And also, I mean, a lot of managers come on the course as well and say, gosh, I've learned how to manage people as well. So yeah, teach people how to teach or train.
Well, what I think is fascinating about what I think is fascinating about what you do is that so many people actually need it. Because I think people that are training people need to do it. I think managers need it. I've identified, and I'm starting to have conversations with people that have sales teams. Your sales team needs it. The reason being is because, and I said this to someone many, many years ago, and I was a sales director at the time. The way sales is changing, and we can see it now very clearly across social media, is nobody stands in front of anybody waving their hands anymore and hoping that people will buy. Well, actually, people do that, but it doesn't work.
If you're us.
If you're online now, how many people in the past week have annoyed the hell out of you by just popping up in your DMs or whatever and going, I'd really like to talk to you about this. No, go away. I don't want to know, because you haven't got to know me at all before you do. You start this conversation. Sales today is about not standing in front of people. It's about walking alongside people. And as you walk alongside people, it's about solving their problems, or solving the problems jointly together, and asking for accommodation of what you need in order to solve those problems as you go. And that requires educating. That requires you being able to disseminate the knowledge that you have effectively to all of the stakeholders involved in that process as you go. So if you can't train people in that sales process, you can't survive these days.
No, and it's that whole relationship. It's that whole relationship building, isn't it? Because I know for me, when I've gone to look for cars on quite a few occasions, and I actually said to someone, I don't think I even realized, I said to the person, why would I want that car over that one? Then I said, because they're both cars. I know nothing really about cars.
They've got wheels, they've got an engine.
Well, I've got an electric car, so but I said, so why would I want that one over that one? And they were like, what do you mean? And I said, well, why would I want that? I thought it's a pretty simple question, really, I would have thought. And I don't think they really answered me. And I said, well, the thing is, surely you need to know about what my life is. Like, have I got kids? Have I this? Have I that? All that kind of stuff. And it just struck me, sort of, they were just trying to sell at me. And if I know someone's just trying to sell at me, I'm not interested, because the way I look at it is that, you know, I might not want that now or whatever. But even, I mean, I'll make you laugh. When I bought my first car when I was 21, I saved up, bought a brand new car. I had 7 or 8 grand, and I saved it. I worked hard, go in, and I get Nissan Micra, it was electric blue. Loved that car. And this is where actually you getting to know people, and that's a lot of what I do. So a lot of what people will say is it was about how I was with them and how I got to know what their sense of humour is. I like an innuendo or two. Some people don't. I have to work that out. So I go in, we get to the point of paying. So how are you gonna finance this, Marianne? I said, well, I'll just pay for it outright. I've got the money. Not cash, I obviously didn't, you know. And they said, oh, right, how did you afford that? I should have known really that I was neurodiverse back then, because he said, this salesman said, how did you afford that then? Making assumptions. I said, I went on the game. What do you think? Well, he didn't quite know what to say back.
Oh.
So he kind of went quiet, and I saved it because I worked really hard. But even if I had have done it, it's none of your business whatever I did. however I did.
I need the car to have those things by the doors with the hoops, which you normally hang suits on, because it's good for the handcuffs.
Yeah.
You should have gone with it. Should have played with it.
That was a perfect example, wasn't it? If you don't get to know someone, then you know that's a big bit of what I do, but also that's what you do. So if you talk, because I kind of accidentally stumbled across you, really, didn't I? Because of your
well, that's what I was going to do now.
Really dodgy, given what I was just talking about.
This is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to explain what I do by asking you to explain what I do. So when you first found me on social media, did you know what I did? Could you see what I did? Because I think I try and adopt an air of mystique on social media. I don't think my banner gives it away. I don't say I'm a copywriter, I do this, I do that, because I think I'm much more multifaceted than that. Which is why I just say I'm broadcasting live on LinkedIn. I think it feels much more like something you want to ask me about, rather than just saying I do this or that. And often people do. They say, "Well, what is it you do?" And they come and ask me the question. So that's good. But did you understand what I did? Do you now understand what I do?
Well, I hope I do, because I use you. But did I? I find the whole of LinkedIn a bit like, anyway. And I quite like the fact it's almost a bit like sort of going out, you know, when like, and in the, you know, sometimes I think, oh, I haven't heard from that person before. So you sort of can almost sort of go around going into people's conversations. Then you think, oh, I've just met a new person over there. And I suspect that's what happened with you. I suspect that somebody I know must have commented on one of your polls, and it must have come up on my thing or whatever. To which I then, I don't think I knew initially. I just thought it's quite fun, actually. And there's not enough of that kind of fun. So although what I tend to see is a lot of people, when they, and you really educated me into what sales and marketing, but more marketing actually, because interestingly, what we're doing now, I'd always had this thought that I wanted to be able, I'd held back in terms of me getting bigger because I didn't know how to. I was like, how do I let the world know what I do? And I can't afford to have a salesperson. And how do I do marketing? But then I thought, what I'd really like to do is really be able to celebrate what other people have done via me, which would then show other people what. Then interestingly, having spoken to you, then you were like, well, this is what I do. I write with people's content, that kind of stuff. And then we got talking about me using you. And I said, I'd really like to And that's when you were talking about educating me and then I would be able to use you, which I thought was a brilliant way of, I was going to say selling what you do, but it's not really, because that's the sort of person you are, is that you're like me. If you give a bit, if I'd never used you, it never would have bothered you. But the fact was that you're more like I was more likely to use you when I could afford it than, like, I could say to you, you can still keep asking me, but I still can't afford you. But actually, like you said, if I help you grow, then actually I would use you, and I have sort of spread the word. So did I know initially? No,
Probably
but I quite
not.
like that. It made me interested because, like I said, and that's probably quite, I say, like my content, I don't just want to write about training all the time. And I know that somebody once said to my husband's friend said once, Christ, all you ever talk about is teaching. And I thought, oh God, then I thought, am I really boring? And then I thought, well, actually, no, I tend to just talk about any old random stuff, really. But I quite like to, I might talk about random stuff, but you and I talk about all sorts of random stuff.
Exactly. I'll tell you what I think I do. So I think I'm a business coach, stroke creative, stroke facilitator of conversation and content, all wrapped into one. And what I do is I help people grow ultimately what I do is I help people grow their business. But I do that by helping in the areas where they need that help.
Yeah.
Right. And walking them through that journey and showing them which bits they can do and which bits they need somebody else to do as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And so, yes, I do write copy. I do make videos. I do make podcasts. I do all of this creative stuff, but we also have conversations about, how to invoice people, or, what sort of fees you should be charging for this, or conversations about how should I structure my business, or, where should I be looking to market my business? All of those different areas, because I don't see myself as a singular faceted person just working in one area.
You're a bit like my fairy godmother. No, seriously, I just the other day about it, because I said to you about how am I going to be able to market myself, but not in the traditional way. I don't do traditional generally, but I'm not really a out there sort of person. And so, from the conversations we had, when you said, actually, what we could do is this, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I was thinking I wanted to do anyway. And then we've sat down and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. And I'm struggling with that. And you were able to provide everything that I didn't, well, I knew I needed, but I didn't really know I needed. But constant, where you said people would DM me, I can do this for you, I can do that for you. And I'm like, well, I haven't got the money to pay you all to do it. And also, you don't know me. You don't know me. You don't know me, and nor do you. And so how are you all going to make this come together? And there's one, you are it.
Well, this is why I have a massive, massive problem. And I'm sorry if you are one of these, but this is where I have a massive, massive problem with, what I was going to say, with anyone that's a platform coach, because I just think, and I'm sure you have a place, but I just think the trouble is, are we trying to make sheep? Are we trying to make copycats of ourselves and everything that we do? It's the easiest thing in the world, right? If you're an expert on a social media platform, to say, do what I do and you will be successful. Because actually, when you self-prophesy that you're an expert on a social media platform, you can do pretty much anything you want, as long as you don't get banned, on that platform. And it will bring you success, right? You can flirt, you can be half naked, you can use innuendo, you can do this, you can shock people, you can do lots of great charity work. Not saying that that's wrong, that's a brilliant thing. Well done, everybody that does that.
You've got to do it
Yeah, but you can do all of these very public, you can make it of yourself, all of those things. The thing is, that will bring you attention, and that attention will grow your business, because more attention for those kind of people is more business. The majority of people that are out there have something more complex to sell, have a much more multifaceted offering. It's maybe one area and then another area. You know, it may take quite a lot of understanding in order for someone to buy into it. They can't necessarily get the same success doing all of those things, because they have to be careful, or they're regulated by an authority, or whatever it is. So each individual company and person really does need an individualized plan for what they do to market their business. And it starts with them understanding what will help their business grow. And that might not, it's quite often when people come to talk to me, the first thing I ask them about is what their business is about, because it might be that parts of their business aren't structured properly in the first place before we even go marketing it. You know, if you've got a turd of a business and then you start marketing, all your marketing is a turd. So get your business together first. Know what it is that your aims and objectives of your business are. See, I listen. And then you know what you are marketing.
But right? Interestingly, that's where there is that. I hadn't really thought about it up till now. Since you're saying that with what I do, because people will say to me, so you're going to tell me what I've got to do? And I said, no, I'm going to teach you the knowledge and skills for you to be able to then go out and interpret it. Because like you've just said, and I haven't really thought about it, there are some people will come on my courses and say, we literally get told what we have to, like what the material is and how. But what I also then, I say to them, you've got the tools now to be able to go away from here to say, because you've got the psychology, to say to that company, do you know what, you're telling us to do it this way, but this isn't the most effective way. I said, because a lot of the time it's somebody who doesn't actually know what they're talking about that's told them how to do it. And so so in that same kind of way, I then get them to question that. So, like you said, sometimes you've got regulatory bodies, and you know, I'm not one to take things lying down, but so I would then say to someone, well, actually, you need to go back and argue that. You need to go, if you've got a feeling why that's not right, the same as you said, if you get them to look at the business and you can see a problem and they can see it, don't keep on with that. Because, and I hadn't really ever thought about the same, that's similar. But again, it's because you're educating them, and that's what I'm doing. I'm not just feeding. People come on the course sometimes, some people, and I'll say, right, have you done any have you delivered training before? Yes. And they'll go, they don't want to come. And I'll say, well, the thing is, you're going to get as much from this as somebody else that's never done anything, because your journey is going to be different. Your journey is going to be, and those people that have done lots still walk every time without fail and say, Christ, I learned so much, because I wasn't just feeding them a formula, because there is no formula. There isn't. And that's why people say to me, oh, I'm really, really nervous. I said, just, you know how to structure. I said, so long as you know, and that's why I bang on about structuring sessions and aims and objectives, because if that bit is right, the same as you said there, the rest of it is just you being you. And you can't, it's the same as using somebody else's material if you were doing stand-up. So it's the same, like you said, there'll be some celebrities, and I'm sure there's people out there that do LinkedIn stuff that people are like, wow, there's some kind of God. And I go, but you are too. It's just that they've managed, I'm not saying they're not good, but they've managed to get seen somehow. And like you said, they might get away with stuff that you can't. I've got a sense of humor that I've got. You've got the sense of humor you've got. Other people will say, oh my gosh, they do micro teachers. I'm like that. I'm not like the other person. I said, don't try and be them. And the same, like you said, with business. You see lots of businesses. Some of them are very corporate, I'm sure, and some aren't. And it's about looking at, what's going on there, and then being able for you in terms of sales, because I suppose you're in sales as well, aren't you, that you have to get behind them, which you've done with me as well. You know, you said to me one day when I was like, I don't want to do this, you know, and you said to me, if you could start all over again and you could do anything you wanted, would you still do what you do? And I went, yes, I would.
And that was it.
Because I don't want to do anything else.
No. So and for me, that's the really important thing. And if you like, that's the key to a better way of life, which is that, you know, you've got to find that one thing that even, and it will drive you mad sometimes. So I think some people are just not honest about this. And I hate those posts where people go, only you start doing the thing that you really love in life, then all of the pain will disappear. No, it won't. In fact, it will actually probably be really tough sometimes, because running your own business is really tough and damn right awful sometimes. But you'll have the resolve to keep doing it if it's what you love doing.
Yeah.
Right. And but also you need to find the people that will walk alongside you in that as well, because even if you are on your own running a business, you don't have to do it all yourself, right? And you just need to find, even if it's just people that lift you up time to time.
Yeah, it's not even about paying people, is it? It's because even if you got all that there, I mean, I saw somebody post earlier on about, they said, oh God, I'm going to say something that's going to make me unpopular. And they were saying about how, you know, it's okay if your ambition isn't to be a 4-figure earning, you know, and it's okay if I had to laugh, because it's okay if you don't want to get up at 4 a.m. and go for a run or go and have an ice bath. And I thought, yes, because there seems to be this sort of like, you're better if you get up at that time and go for a run. And I said, but I don't want to, I'm usually going to sleep about 4 o'clock because I don't sleep. But actually, when you're all sleeping and I'm not calling you lazy, I'm in my office working because that works for me. And so, yeah, it's about doing what works for you.
I think we'll have that conversation another week as well, which is the posts around put yourself first and then you can look after everyone else. It's okay, but actually,
I put myself first and my kids can cook for themselves.
but actually, when you are a parent, when you are, you know, when you are in relationships or whatever, it's not all about you. And sorry, part of growing up is actually losing some of your own self to actually be part of other people's lives and sacrifice is important. I'm sorry, it's just a bit of a high horse. Now listen, we've virtually run out of time. We'd like to tell you that in future weeks of this chaotic mess, we will actually have guests as well. We're going to bring people in, as I said right at the beginning, we're going to bring people in who are going to tell us their story, and they'll be grilled by us, and in a nice way, like nice cheese, grilled cheese, yeah, in that kind of way, because so that we can all understand a little bit more about this planet that we're on, and ourselves. Maybe we'll just walk away from this more confused. Doesn't really matter. It's all entertaining at the same time. So this has been me and Marianne Mills for the first edition of A Better Way of Life. If you've enjoyed this, please do share it with people. And if you haven't, well, you can ignore it, can't you, really? And move on somewhere else. We're going to make sure
share it because others might like it.
Yeah, share it because someone else might like it. It's not all about you selfish. No, anyway, you know what I mean. Anyway, we will be putting this out on various platforms. Instagram, it will go out on all of the different platforms. You're watching it on one now, and we're also turning it into a podcast as well, so people can listen back to it while they're stuck on the M25. So look out for this on Spotify and all of those other lovely streaming things as well. We'll be back every week with this, unless we miss the odd week due to illness or something. So until next time, bye for now.
Bye-bye.